Hi everyone, here I am. My name is Emma Bradford and I'm with Aleem. So those of you who don't know, Aleem and we were on the Master Practitioner NLP training many years ago. He's my NLP buddy and today we're going to be talking about some interesting topics and especially something that can help us during this time that we're all facing. So we're in a very unique situation where the whole world is in this situation together, and in a weird way it's brought a lot of unity. So we're going to be talking about a few things. I'll just pass you over to Aleem so he can introduce what he does
Okay,
a little
cool.
bit.
Perfect, Emma. Appreciate you inviting me on. This is going to be pretty cool. I think it was 2013, I believe, Master Practitioner. Uh, 7 years ago. Where's that time gone? It's crazy.
Flying
Yeah,
by.
so it's madness, isn't it? I don't know where that time's gone. Yeah, so it's pretty cool to be here. My name's Aleem. I'm a mindset coach. I tend to work in the area of helping small businesses, especially at this time, to thrive in uncertain times. People coming together, growing together, and finding ways they can help more people at this time is really key. Looking forward to this, Emma. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we're both working in the NLP field still. So Aleem works with mindset coaching and I'm an NLP trainer and train those who want to become practitioners. And yeah, we both found a lot of benefit from NLP. Like it's been super useful. I've certainly it's changed my life in terms of like what I've learned. And yeah, and it's still something I use all the time. So yeah, wonderful. So today we were talking just before we pressed record about the power of service, and helping people. So Aleem, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think, especially at this time, as we say, with everything going on out there, service is so important. So the ability for people to come together in communities is a way that some people serve in that way. Some people will serve on a smaller level. Uh, for me, service is really important because it's kind of starting with the premise of what difference can I make? Now, that's a really powerful one, not just in the business context, but in a personal context, because it can be the small things that we do which can make a massive difference. So, for example, if you are popping in to get some food or whatever from the supermarket, a smile goes a hell of a long way. It really does. Because what we're doing is we're kind of saying, human to human, look, I'm here. We're going through this together. And we appreciate what you're doing for us right now because you're providing us with a service so we can get food, or if it's medical supplies or whatever. That sort of stuff is really vital that people come together. So, especially in the UK, actually, it's quite interesting because usually people have a perception of people that work in supermarkets. But now there's a mass appreciation coming through that actually, wow, they're keeping the shelves stocked as much as they can do. They're making sure things are in order. They're making sure the lines are going through and people are able to get their food and stuff and everyday stuff. And it's interesting, there's a new appreciation. So rather than what you say, more of a hierarchical system, people are getting to see each other more on an equal basis based on actually we're in this together. There isn't this massive separation of, I don't know, status per se. It's kind of leveling out a little bit more because the people that we've perceived as maybe celebrities, for example, they're becoming a little bit more human and they're connecting with people. And they're doing maybe, like, for example, Jessie J, I believe, did an online concert on Instagram and stuff along those lines. So it's bringing people together, finding ways that we can help people, leave them in a better space. So that's, for me, the service side is really key. And I know obviously service to others is great as well as service to ourselves, so how we can help ourselves. I know you're going to elaborate a lot more on that one there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we talk about the six basic human needs by Tony Robbins, I mean, like whether you love him or hate him, like the six basic human needs are something that like his version of it is something that's really useful, and one of them is contribution. And
Yeah.
that's often one of the needs that's often forgot about. Like people remember like the loving connection and the significance, the perceived certainty, the variety or the uncertainty, but the growth and contribution are the ones sometimes people forget about, and those are what we call the spiritual needs. And that contribution is really important. That contribution, like, okay, how do I, like, if I have the opportunity to use words to create action, like how do I want to, like, what ripple do I want to create in the world? Like through our words and actions, we're able to create a ripple. Like if you imagine like a lake, a still lake, and we can throw a stone in and all the ripples like feed out across the lake. It's our words and actions that create those ripples. And it's like, what do I want to send out into the world today? Like, what's my message today? Like, how do I want to show up? One thing I like to do is to have like, it's almost like setting the intention in the day of like in the morning, like saying like, okay, like you can choose whatever you want. I tend to choose love. It's like, okay, love, like show up, like let me be a vessel for your expression today. Let me be a vessel for your words and your actions today. So yeah, absolutely, like being like random acts of kindness, like you were saying, like helping others. And there's so many options and so many ways and so many organizations out there that are bringing more and more and more of this into the world. And like you said, it can be something really simple, like a smile. And it can be easy to forget sometimes. I mean, I've certainly forgotten many times. And then you remember, and then you're like, okay, come back to like to being that, yeah, helping others. And I think also like what's interesting is that like in NLP we talk about the cause and effect equation, like being at cause, like being responsible and being at cause and taking responsibility for life. And then the effect side of the equation is when we're being the victim and we're blaming. When we're on that side of the equation, when we're playing the victim and we're blaming others and pointing the finger and everything's wrong and blah, blah, blah. One thing that can really help us get out of that is to start being of service, to help others, because we're starting to like see that we're all in the same situation as humanity, that we're in a very unique time at the moment, and yeah, we're all in this together. Some people are finding it more challenging than others. Some people have more difficulties than others. Yet through being of service, the power of service, helping people, that's one way to start recognizing, like leveling everything out and actually like start feeling empowered in life rather than playing the victim role as well.
Yeah, that's so key actually, because it's an interesting one, because as human beings it's very easy to jump to the effect side of the equation. It's very, very easy, because if you think about it, if even from corporate cultures and stuff along those lines, usually if something goes not as wrong would be the word I would use, it's kind of, it was because of X, Y, Z. There's always reasons outside of people. And in life, we either have obviously loads of reasons, or we have results, or we are at cause versus effect. And it's a challenging time, because if you think of it this way, all the systems, the distractions, potentially the addictive behaviors where people have distracted themselves into the effect side so that they don't feel certain feelings, are suddenly melting away, or they don't fulfill them as much. Now, this can be a phenomenal time, but also can be a challenging time, because if we've known something for 20, 30, 40 years, and suddenly the things that used to fulfill us, maybe the system has collapsed in that way, or perhaps we're not able to access those things as easy, or we're accessing them so much now that suddenly the feelings that we once had a sense of temporary fulfillment has disappeared. So it's kind of where we go, okay, so I have done all of this stuff and this stuff isn't working now. Where we go into contribution mode, it's almost like we kind of go, so what difference can I make for others? How can I contribute? And then suddenly what happens is any sort of little mini anxieties, that sort of stuff, tend to change a little bit and dissolve a little bit because our focus is off ourselves. So it's on other people and what difference. And then when we see that human aspect, that people, us and them, there is no us and them, it's we, then we kind of go, so it minimizes separation. So when it minimizes separation, it increases wholeness and connection. And then we can kind of see, okay, it doesn't matter what people's religion is, gender is, sexual identity is, or any of that sort of stuff. It's kind of like we're together. And I think that's a very different space. I think the world hasn't been in that space for a long time. So I think in that sense, it's brought people together in ways they never imagined, in activities they never thought they'd do. So that's how I'm seeing it at the moment.
Absolutely. I've been reading many different theories on what's been going on, and everything from like what mainstream news says to conspiracy theories to spiritual teachings. I like to see a variety of different input, like hear a variety of different things so I can form my own opinion. And I remember reading one article about talking about how like we've been talking for a long time about like many people in the spiritual field talking about the rise of the feminine energy, and how this opportunity is like that awakening on a really grand scale. Because and I'm not talking about genders here, I'm talking about like masculine and feminine. So those of you who are listening, like this is nothing to do with genders, it's to do with energies. And we were talking about like how this opportunity is really inviting us on a very big scale to connect with that feminine energy, which is all about going in within, reflecting, connecting with ourselves, and also having that nurturing, nourishing, loving connection as well with others as well, and really letting go of the striving, the achieving, and all of the like kind of like the hard business mentality of like do and all of that. We're being invited to go back into this being. Remember that we're human beings, and part of that word human being, there's being in there. Is that being is important, and really connecting to that, and remembering that. I think I've seen like so many people waking up to what they really value in life, like remembering what they really value in life, like what's really important. And yeah, absolutely, this is a wonderful time. It's challenging. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right on that sense of what you're talking about, this hard mentality or this hustle mentality and stuff along those lines. And I heard this analogy, and it's not my analogy, but I heard this analogy from a coach, speaker, who's doing a lot of content online on YouTube right now. And he was talking about A energy versus B energy. And he was saying that obviously one of them was coming from a love space versus sort of just doing it out of the ego mentality of just do. And he goes that this time is interesting because of the systems and the stuff that have collapsed out there. It's the time to really, really connect with yourself and evolve from that space where you connect. If you connect with the love inside of you and that connection inside of you, then you come out of service from a better space, because it's not about just a short-term win. And I think that's really, really key. I think as well, I think the key element, I think, is in some spiritual circles, they'll call this the golden era. And some people believe that started on the 14th of March. And obviously there was big changes around before then and stuff along those lines. So it's kind of connecting with who we are the being part of us, because obviously we've got so used to this sort of human doing sort of thing for so long, that suddenly that doesn't work quite now. So in other words, if someone's doing and their intention is just about them, people feel that even more so in these times in comparison to maybe previous times. And the being aspect is really key, because if we're giving from that space of, say, for example, service and adding value, and creating change and difference for others, they really feel it. It's and this can go into, if we're broadening it out and we're talking about business, people can feel that when you really put them as the priority and you want them to be in that better space, they feel that even more so now than previously, because they can sense people's intention, and people have started to do it more and more. But this time, I think people are kind of doing it to a greater deal. They're a bit more sensitive to their emotions. They're a little bit more connected. If you think about it, self-isolation, the greatest seekers of all, when they've had in spiritual traditions or anything in sense of the science fields and stuff like that, they had a period of isolation. Now we've all been given this, what you call this forced isolation, which basically means that there's nothing wrong with Netflix, but if you're spending all day with Netflix, it's not going to develop you. Like, how are you going to come out on the back end of like that sort of mentality? But if you have some time, you watch some of that, that's fine. But you spend some time developing yourself. Maybe it's your skill set. Maybe it's your personal connection with who you are. Maybe it's meditation, whatever it is for you, or your mindset. If you're doing this stuff, what happens is when you grow, it's almost like your internal reservoir to add service to others grows as well. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I say with my students that every act of self-care is an act of care for humanity as well.
Mm.
And this is something I learned the hard way, because I'm someone who, like, ever since I can remember, I've wanted to help people like be of service, and I've had this really strong mission for being of service for humanity, and then obviously I chose the job that I'm doing which ties in with that, and after a while I realized that for quite a long time I was missing that aspect of self-care. And I cannot give when I'm on empty. I cannot give when I'm not looking after myself. And it's this in life, it's this kind of like, there are moments of like, maybe like the balance is like this. Like sometimes there are moments where you feel like you're in balance, and then other moments it's kind of something happens and you're like that, and then it's like, it's this constant kind of like realigning ourselves all the time. And that's a beautiful thing of life, because life is change, and we're constantly learning and growing from every like little reshuffle that happens. Yet like coming back to ourselves and giving to ourselves is so important. And this is a time to, I feel, a really powerful time to support other people and to be of service. Yet we are included in that. We need to be included in that. And then maybe some challenging times where we actually have to prioritize like ourselves over other people, and like first like look to ourselves, and then we can go out and help other people. And it can be in many different ways, like self-care, self-love. It's not just bubble baths and massages. Like there are many different aspects to it. It's like how we're like looking after our physical body, how we're looking after our emotional body, how we're looking after our spiritual body, our mental body. Like that, we have all these different aspects. And I remember reading a post by a lady called Peter Kelly, and I quote this often. And she was talking about self-care and self-love and the difference between the two. And she was saying that self-care is like the actions and the things that we do, and it doesn't have to be like like, again, it doesn't have to be like a bubble bath. It can actually be like, okay, choosing to set a boundary, or choosing to like focus on your mindset, like what you're focused on, things like that. And then she's saying self-love is when we allow ourselves to receive it. So like self-love is the receiving, and the self-care is the act. And when I heard that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. And allowing ourselves to actually receive these things as well. So if we're going to use this time at home to cook a nice meal, or to have an early night, or to give ourselves a foot massage, or to like dance to some music, or like, am I actually being present in that? Am I allowing myself to receive that fully? And when we're able like to really receive that fully and be present with that, and like notice what we see, hear and feel, then we're filling up that bucket, that self-care love bucket, even further, because we're really like paying attention to that, and then we have so much more to give to others.
100%. That makes a lot of sense as well. And I like the analogy. Obviously, the self-care aspect is the doing aspect, and the receiving is the self-love, which is for ourselves, for the spirit, for the light, whatever way we would describe it. But yeah, it's so key, because it's that cycle, isn't it? Give and receive. So we can only give to others if we're open to receiving. And sometimes the pattern we could be running is we're very good at giving, but the receiving side, not so. So I'll give an example. So there's a lady, I was listening to a conversation. She was on an online forum or Zoom or something along those lines. And she was saying, oh, financially, this is really difficult for me because I have to ask for money. And the analogy the person used was, it goes, well, that's your pattern. You're not used to receiving, not asking. You're not used to receiving. So actually, it might be a good thing for you now to be in a place where you're open to receiving, because you're not asking for money, you're receiving. Because you're so used to being able to give and give to others, and being, what we say, independent and all that sort of stuff, but maybe not so open to receiving. And that's key. It's been able to have both sides, almost like that spinning wheel, and they're flowing really nicely, because it's almost like the analogy of, if we're giving, but then we close our hand really quickly, then we kind of close our hand, we're not open to receiving. But if we open our palm, then we can give, and also we're open to receiving. It's that flow, it's that energy, whether that's in human relationships, whether that's with our health. If there's a lot of health trainers out there, for example, it's being able to give to others and also to receive as well. Be open to receive, and whatever that receive is, it might be a thank you, it might be more business, whatever it is for them, be open to receiving as well. Do not play into other people's expectations, which lead to guilt. Because the thing is, we can never really let down people. We can only not meet their expectations. And that's the thing. Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to feel this way. So no, give and receive. So you've got energy going in both directions. So you feel comfortable in one area as well as the other area. So if it's a financial aspect, you'll feel comfortable giving money out and feeling happy about that. If it's bills and stuff like that, if we have resentment bills, it's not going to be so good. And also being happy when receiving as well. So we've got that energy flow. And again, this could be nothing to do with financial. This could be around exercise, or someone giving you a gift. So you're used to giving gifts, and someone gives you a gift, and go, oh no, I can't take that. No, be open to receiving. Be open to receiving both aspects. Or it could be a compliment, as simple as a compliment. You're used to complimenting other people. Someone compliments you, and you go, oh, no worries, and we push it off. Be open to receiving. Thank you. Appreciate that. It's in different aspects. It's really key, this energy flow in both sides, give and receive. And sometimes if we're naturally people, I know you mentioned you're naturally someone who gives and wants to help people. Sometimes the receive side is so key for us. And same with myself as well, being open to receive and being okay with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was thinking of the compliments thing just before you said that. We're on the same wavelength. Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what I first started with, because I used to find that very difficult. And I used to like started with that first many years ago. I was like, okay, from now on, like whenever someone says something nice, then just to say thank you. That's it. Thank you. Even if in the beginning it's a bit like, I want to like follow it up with like, oh no, but and try to counteract it.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's it. And that's the first step. And then you can start kind of opening up to different ways of receiving, and like receiving from yourself, receiving from others. So yeah, that giving and receiving is really important. And this also is connected with the planet, with environment. Here we are in this situation where we've been taking for so many years, like taking from the planet. Have we been giving as well? And when we've been receiving from the planet, have we been really mindful of that and really grateful for the gifts, or have we been taking it for granted? And I know that some people have been talking about like how we've been destroying the lungs of the earth, and then now what's happening, like we have a virus that is affecting the lungs of people, and it's interesting that here we have an opportunity to rethink how we live on this planet.
Yeah, I definitely think so. In that context, I think it's interesting. It's having obviously gratitude for resources that we use within the planet as well is really important. I really think there'll be a big shift, to be fair, in this I mentality to more of a I and me mentality to more of a we sort of mentality outside of all of this. I think the hierarchical systems, the status, let's look just practically, if we look outside, all those systems are basically collapsing right now. Now, sometimes things have to fall apart for them to have a new level of growth or a new consciousness or perspective. And sometimes we try to save things in a sense, I need to save this, I need to save this, we're almost like grasping a hold of something that's already falling apart. And there might be actually a reason, I don't know, but there might actually be a reason why certain things are falling apart right now. So it's really getting us to look a little bit deeper inside of us and thinking, okay, so there's a likelihood there's going to be a new normal which is going to be created. Some people are saying, oh, I wish things could go back to normal, but there's definitely stuff I connected with my cousins in US and Canada and UK last Saturday. We're going to be doing like a Zoom every weekend. And we haven't connected like that for quite a while. So that wouldn't have happened unless we had these circumstances. So, and we spoke for ages, hour and a half, whatever it was. That I jumped on the second part. So they originally did a 40 minutes, and then it was coming towards the end of their Zoom, and basically did a new link, and we were about an hour and a half talking away. And my niece in the US, she got to see all her cousins. She hasn't seen them face to face. She got to see them on that Zoom and speak with them a bit as well. So, and her aunts and uncles, that's a lot of them she hasn't seen yet. So that sort of stuff wouldn't have happened unless all of sort of as it was a consequence of not being able to connect in the normal way or the perception of normal way to now this was an environment where it brings people together. So it's interesting. I think with every crisis, with every challenge, there's an opportunity. With every crisis, there's a blessing. How do we know this? Because we're human beings. We don't live in a one-sided reality. So we can never always be kind. We can never always be happy, because there's times when we're not, which basically means we have a balance. We're a balanced human being. So we own all the traits. So sometimes what can seem as the worst case scenario is if we ask ourselves a simple question, okay, everything is gone. We've lost everything. Am I okay in this moment? And most people would answer yes. That's all you got to focus on. When the macro seems out of control, focus on the micro in this moment. Because when our minds are not rushing 100 miles an hour, guess what happens? We're less stressed. We're more connected to the present moment. The part of the nervous system for rest and recovery and relaxation, the parasympathetic area, happy days, that's more switched on. So if we can connect more with this moment, so we don't have to distract ourselves with addictive behaviors and distractions. And you're present, that's where new fresh ideas come from anyway. Philosophers, scientists, business owners, whatever you want to say, new ideas come from when we create space.
Absolutely.
And to give us the greatest opportunity to create space, it might feel uncomfortable at first because we're not used to it, but that's part of the growth.
Absolutely. And we need to like find some way to, yeah, like what is this opportunity? Like you're saying, like this is an opportunity. There's so many things. Like, yes, there are so many things that are challenging and hard and difficult, and some people are finding it really, really difficult, losing their businesses or not being able to pay the rent, or like all of this. And it's important to kind of like, yeah, feel what you're feeling and notice what's coming up and all of that. And also get back to the cause side of the equation. Like, what can I learn from this? What can I do? Because then that's what helps us to manage that situation, to find the resilience to go through that situation. It's like the yin yang symbol. Like, you have the black and the white, or like the light and the shadow, however you want to call it, or the yin and the yang. It depends like how people want to view that. There's always like the two energies, the two aspects, and with every expansion there's some contraction as well. So, and often what happens is, like, just before like a massive growth spurt or a massive kind of expansion, it can be really useful. And often this is what happens, that there's this time of contraction, there's this time of going in within, and this is what's happening to humanity at the moment. Like, we're in this moment of coming in within, like having this opportunity to do all the internal work, because we're going to go through massive growth spurts and expansion as a collective over the next few years. Days, weeks, months, years.
We don't know.
And sometimes, like, we need to really look at like what's serving me. And this is really interesting that this is coming up in the springtime, like this opportunity to spring clean everything that's up here. Like anything that's not serving us, that we can do this, and we can let go of what's really not working out for us. In numerology, this is not related to NLP, but in numerology this year, and regardless of whether people agree with it or not, is quite interesting. This is connected to what Pythagoras was talking about. And the number 4 this year is a universal year, number 4. And number 4 is the year of getting rid of all of the structures, all of the things that are no longer serving us, rebuilding the foundation for the new. And this is what's happening at the moment. This is what is happening at the moment, and this is what we're being asked to do. So that means having a good look at your life, what's working, what's not, letting go of the things that are not working, and rebuilding the foundations for the years to come.
100%. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when Emma's saying letting go, and even my interpretation of letting go is, it's that there's nothing wrong with having stuff. There's nothing wrong with doing stuff. But who you are is not what you do and what you have. Who you are is your being. So you're more valuable than money. You might not believe it, but you're more valuable than money, because every bit of money you've ever created or attracted into your life came through you. So that is when you realize your own personal value, and then you realize maybe patterns coming up. We know we were talking about doing the internal work. So I noticed some patterns come up, and then there were some patterns I was like, okay, so that's my fixer mind trying to find solutions. And it's like, maybe I just got to become present in this moment. And then any solution that comes out of it has got nothing to do with me trying to fix something. It's actually something that's generally coming out of it. We were talking about this mentality of this hustle and this striving and stuff like that, and this chasing. And the thing is, with chasing and striving and stuff like that, a lot of the times that's coming out of trying to prove something to others, trying to get love and attention from others, trying to get a sense of importance from others. And the only person we really wanted love from is ourselves. It's not the parents, because I know sometimes people will go back, and it is to a certain extent people like mum and dad relation, and they're looking at that sort of stuff. But the main person that we ever really need love and acceptance from is ourselves. So there's some part of us that we've disowned, and then we projected that part into someone else who's taught us that part that's been disowned, that they irritate us, and they usually are our partners and close family members. And it's usually the part of us that we've disowned that we project onto them so we can love that part of ourselves. Because when you love that part of yourself and there's no longer a trigger there, guess what happens? Gratitude.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah, this is the thing. It's again, it's like giving, receiving, like being able to help others, but first it comes back to us, like what we can do for us and start loving ourselves and really appreciating who we are, like who we really are, because what's here, like the physical body and the personality, that's like the book cover. There's so much more within, like it's like we're so much more. And aside from NLP, I also have another training called Creating Change. And what I say to my students on that, which we blend in a little bit of dance and movement, and I say, you are what animates your body. You are what animates your body. Like you are the living, breathing example of that expansion and that contraction. And that's who we really are. We are like, I'm in this human experience right now. I have the name of Emma. I have a certain personality traits and all of that. And I have this body. Yet it's not who I am. It's not who I am.
That's it. So all the identities are getting broken down right now, whether we like it or not. Sometimes they say, you must get outside your comfort zone, and you've got that traditional sort of personal development. And here is kind of like, well, no one has a choice. You are going to get outside your comfort zone. You're going to get a kick up your ass, whether you like it or not. You're going to get and step outside that comfort zone. So who we are, as I said, it's not the money we have. It's not what we do. Because the thing is if we put our identity outside of ourselves and say we are this, the challenge is if that goes away, which unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, for a lot of people that's gone away. Now they're looking and thinking, okay, if I'm not that person, then who am I? And it's probably one of the first human questions people ask is like, who am I? And it's one of the philosophers, the spiritualists, ask themselves. But it's one of the things that sometimes it's very easy in the modern world is it's all around keeping busy and doing lots of stuff and sometimes keeping up with the Joneses. Some people have got this impression that they've got to do that. And the thing is that's not who you are. So if that's not who you are, then what is the purpose of it? It's nothing wrong with having some nice things, but if you believe on some level that's who you are, then that's a lie. It's not really true. We're more than that. And it's scary because you've got to do the internal work. It's scary. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say it's easy, but who we are is so much greater than that.
Absolutely. It's that beyond identity. It's what Robert Dilts talks about, beyond identity. And this ties in with how we started the conversation, like being of service, because even if we don't agree, like some people might not agree with this perspective, and that's fine. everyone has their own perspective and opinion. Even just considering this perspective, that we are this being, this energy, that in itself, considering that, and just considering that, okay, so if that is true, like, how do I choose to show up today? That in itself is an act of service to humanity. That in itself is the power of service. So we don't actually have to do actions also like out there. I mean, it's lovely to open up a door for someone, smile at someone, and all of that, and that's wonderful. And I encourage that. And at the same time, it can even also be with this perspective, or considering this perspective for a moment and recognizing, okay, I'm one part of the greater whole. One of my favorite quotes, I mean, this might resonate with some people and it might not. I'll share it. This is one of my favorite quotes, and it's from a book by Robert Schwartz called Your Soul's Plan. And it goes along the lines of, each of us is a spark of consciousness in a larger unified consciousness, each a cell in the heart of one divine being. People talk about how we are like each like a droplet of water in that big ocean. There are many different metaphors and analogies, and recognizing that and using that perspective, that is also like being of service.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, totally makes sense. And I think they did an experiment years ago. They had obviously the astronauts when they're going into space, and they have something where they're basically going out, and then I can't remember what the effect is, but basically their perspective looking at the Earth from that distance got them a sense of peace, clarity, seeing the bigger picture. I was going to use the word observer effect, but I know it's not that, but it's something very, very similar, where they basically, because they've got that view, they're kind of saying, actually, we're all together in this. There isn't a separation. So I think it's one of those things where if we can view our thoughts, if we can view our behaviors before we do them, which we at times we do, then we cannot be our thoughts and we cannot be our behaviors. So what is the thing that's viewing it? That's that's the biggest mystery of them all. Because if that basically means whether you're a little bit open thinking, okay, there must be something, I don't know what it quite is, but there is something, because I'm viewing my thoughts, I'm viewing my behaviors, I'm viewing myself in the moment, I'm viewing my thoughts and the responses to others, then, and my reactions, I'm viewing that, then I cannot be them. Because you cannot view something, otherwise you'd be in the first person all the time. So if you're able to view them, then somehow you are not them. So if you're not them, what are you truly? And that's the biggest mystery of them all, right?
Yeah, I often say, like, with my students, when I talk about the negative self-talk or the inner critic, and this is what Eckhart Tolle would, like, he would talk about, like, how we're the one hearing those thoughts. We are not those thoughts, we're the one hearing the thoughts. So absolutely, yeah, we're so much more than that. And if I encourage like people listening, like if we can like consider this perspective, even if like we don't choose to like hold on to this perspective long term, like just consider it for a moment and notice how much resilience can be found through that, or how much like we can connect to this sense of inner strength that can actually like help us get through anything. Because this is the thing, this is what Viktor Frankl would talk about. Like he would talk about like how like when people have this greater purpose or this why, like, or this bigger perspective on something, then they can get through anyhow. They can, it doesn't matter the situation. My teacher yesterday, because I'm currently finishing my dance training, and my teacher yesterday, she was saying, like, the river of life energy that flows through us is greater than any situation that we might find ourselves in. So getting in touch with that helps us to then navigate those challenging times, helps us to navigate and find resilience in those tough times, and realize the greater why, and that we're all in this together. We're part of one greater collective. And what can I learn from this? How can I navigate this? What's the opportunity here? Is there anything you want to finish off with, Aleem, before we...
No, pretty much what you just said there is we are the river, and sometimes what we think we are is a small glass that holds the water, but we're the river. We've just forgotten that. So yeah.
Wonderful. So if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
For me, best way is pretty active on Facebook, so that would probably be the best way. Aleem, and if you put GUL, you have a nice little smiley face and you can see it's me. Rather than spelling out my whole surname, it'll be easier. My personal profile more active there.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming today and joining in. I love our conversations because we always talk about so many interesting topics. And if anyone wants to find out what I'm up to as well, there's my website, www.emmabradford.net, or also on Facebook as well, and Instagram, Emma Bradford. So yeah, thank you so much, Aleem. Thank you.
All right, cheers. Appreciate that. Enjoyed that.